Hey guys, and welcome back to the Plentiful Harvest podcast. Today I have my friend Hannah with me, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are, what you do, and just go ahead and kind of get into it.
Absolutely. My name's Hannah. I just turned 30, actually. I am a mom of four, also a business owner. I run an in-home salon called Hannah Does Hair STL out of Maryland Heights, Missouri. We homeschool. I'm a Christian. I'm married.
Let's get into, so the first thing that I want to jump into action now is homeschooling, because I homeschooled for about a year and like a semester. And this was before I had found God. So I was like, no patience for the kids. Tried so hard, but like, it's very hard. So like, what would you say helps you in those times whenever it gets hard and you're just like, I need a minute space?
Yeah. Actually, for a long time, I had that same reservation. Like, I doubted myself. I didn't think I had the patience that homeschooling would demand. And that prevented me from taking the leap. But then you had some things happening with my kids, behavioral wise, with my youngest son, that kind of it shifted my perspective. And I kind of felt like I didn't really have an option at that point. Like, I could have left him in the environment that he was in, but I knew it wasn't going to serve him.
Yeah.
So I made the decision to pull him out. And my other son actually wanted to be homeschooled too, which surprised me because he's very much a social butterfly. But I'm glad that I pulled him out as well, because I realized how much he was actually struggling academically. And yeah.
Dang. So it's been really good for them. So what would you say you had brought up? You had mentioned that they were struggling at school. Your youngest one was struggling. I feel that with my son sometimes. And I feel like more often than not, I'm like, I wish they were still homeschooled. Like, like I wish I had just stuck through it. What was like the hardest thing starting out to be able to do that?
Starting out, and we're still pretty early on in it. I would say just figuring out how to balance what that looks like routine wise, and then also running my business. And then I also coach gymnastics.
Yeah.
Oh my God, little guys. Yeah. So we have a lot. And also just learning and allowing God to teach me and refine me in the process to make me the most fortified version of myself that I can be, so that I can show up for them in that way and be that person, because it is really hard. With the things that I've gone through in my life, it has made it really difficult for me now in adulthood to be able to manage my emotions and express my emotions in a healthy way. And the last thing I want is for my kids to be traumatized by the way my inability really to handle myself and to express myself. So that's probably the biggest challenge. It's just
That's what mine was too. But I think it's like it's just like with parenting, it's like an extension of parenting. Now you've become their teacher too. And it's like that's a new challenge and a new way to have to see. Like I was on Good Omen podcast last night. I was telling Mark, like, you have kids, it's like they become little versions of your shadow, just like running around.
Oh my gosh.
And triggering every little thing you don't even understand how.
Yes.
And so you guys have gymnastics. I'm assuming the kids do that as well.
One of them, our youngest.
Oh, okay. So what other ways with homeschooling do they get to be socialized?
Church is a big one. You go every Sunday. It's very rare we miss a service. My oldest daughter, who just turned 14, actually crazy, is in youth group at church, so she goes every Wednesday. The boys will kind of intermittently get them involved in different sports, seasonally, just trying those things out. And also, our neighborhood actually has a ton of kids in it that my kids are really close to. So they spend a lot of time at the neighbor's house. The neighbors are always coming over.
That's so good. That's so good. Okay, so I just caught that you said you have a 14-year-old. So that means you must have had her when you were 16?
Yeah.
Yeah, so even younger than I had Jaden.
Yes.
So tell me about that.
And both of their names are Jade.
Oh.
Isn't that great?
How's it spelled?
Jaedyn.
Jayden.
To see if she was a boy,
Yep.
it was gonna be Jaden, spelled that way.
Yeah.
I love that name.
That's such a good name.
Yeah,
Okay, so tell me about it. Tell me what you're comfortable with telling me.
absolutely. So, when I was 15, actually, I moved from. Do you want me to? I want to segue into my full testimony.
Yeah, sure.
I'll give you like a.
I feel like the storyline does matter. So it really does. Yeah.
And I die about that. Like when I'm trying to meet you, like right here, and tell you something, I'm like, but wait,
Go ahead, do it wherever you need to.
Okay. So I grew up the oldest of 4 girls, and we were raised primarily by my blind grandma. And my mom she was struggling at that point. Had 4 girls that she couldn't really care for. She has her own mental issues. I learned to give her grace, but as a byproduct of that, we actually ended up in the state's care. So we went to foster care. I was probably about 5 or 6. My youngest sibling is 5-year age gap, so she's 5 years younger than me, so she was a baby. We went to a couple different foster homes. The first couple, actually, the state had to separate us because it was hard to find a family to accommodate 4 children. So it was me and my the second oldest sister and then the 2 youngest. We went to a couple different homes, and then eventually they found someone who was able to take all 4 of us. And I was super excited because I was going to get to be with my sisters again. And you went to this home, and I will say something that one of my biggest takeaways from that home, aside from all of the terrible things that happened there, was I remember walking in, like the first day, and seeing a porcelain doll on top of the grand piano. And that same image of that same doll, I actually seen like just weeks prior. Well, probably months prior. Timelines are fuzzy. Months prior to us getting taken away. I had like this crazy encounter with the Holy Spirit, and I saw this illumination of an angel on the ceiling. Felt this crazy feeling that I just can't even.
And you're 5, right?
I say if I'm like a 5 or 6, I am like a baby, and I'm just laying. We didn't grow up in the best living conditions. I'm just laying on the floor, on this mattress with my siblings. My grandma's in her rocking chair because she had us. She gave us her bed, right? And drug at the elevator. She's rocking or talking, and I'm asking her. I'm like, Grandma, like, why is Mom never around? You're having some really hard conversations. And I just remember feeling that sorrow and the heaviness. And as I looked up at the ceiling, that's just when I saw it. And I felt this crazy feeling. I started just talking. I don't even know what I was saying, really. I feel like, and my grandma doesn't remember this, which breaks my heart, but I know it happened.
Yeah.
And who knows what I was saying? Maybe I was speaking in tense. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe you were. Yeah, so she was just like, oh, she's just.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I really feel happened. But yeah, so years later, I walk in. I didn't really connect the dots at the time. It wasn't until I looked back and I was like, oh, there. Yeah, he was there. And he let me know he was there because that's the first thing I saw when we walked in there. The first thing I took note of was that porcelain doll. Anyways, in this home, like I said, it wasn't great. I didn't really have much of a childhood. We moved in. This woman had 4 of her own biological children. The oldest son was about 8 years older than me. And I'm like 6. Yeah. And there was some sexual abuse that happened between him and I. I'm not going to go too short with it because it's pretty volatile.
Yeah, it's hard when you remember it.
Yeah.
And you don't know what to share. So I understand that. But, okay, so keep going. So he's older than you. He's quite a bit. They're turning a blind eye.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. So the mom, she was a nurse. She wasn't around a lot. The dad was actually a pastor. And the dad and I, they're not together anymore. They're divorced now. And the old foster dad and I still have a pretty good relationship. And I'll get to that later. But the mom, so this abuse is happening. I don't really understand it. I got really close to their youngest daughter, who was just a couple years older than me. And one day I was just talking to her about what was happening. And she, somehow it got back to the mom. that I was saying these things. And so she calls me into her room and she like starts interrogating me. Like, you said this happened. Are you sure it happened? Are you sure it wasn't a dream? Are you sure that it didn't happen in the past and you're just confused? Like, trying to get me to say it didn't happen.
She probably didn't want to believe that her son
She did.
could be capable of that.
Absolutely.
You know?
Which is so crazy to me because I'm like, he was a kid.
He's still a child.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That should have just been an opportunity to
Teach him.
exactly and have no open discussion.
Oh, yeah. Because I'm sure he was exposed to something online or who knows what, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's hard to think about as well. And to just, because when you're a kid, you're terrified or you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she interrogated you. What conclusion did you come to? Like what was the
The outcome of that. Well, I never retracted my statement. I didn't know how to lie at that just like this little innocent girl. And I'm just like, it happened. I don't know like what she wanted me to say. I'm bawling my eyes out. I feel like that was more traumatizing than the actual events themselves. But she maintained that I was lying, that her son was innocent, and took me to a medical examiner to have an examination done. They found no evidence. I now recourse to it because it was never raped. Like, that he never penetrated me. It was everything else besides that. But right as that was happening, actually, my mom married a man who had everything that was required for her to get us back. No, like, they literally only took us away because our living situation and she wasn't there. It drew
she
for that real thing.
Yeah, what was the situation? She was just negligent?
She was just neglectful.
Yeah.
She, like I said, I think she has some undiagnosed mental health
Probably.
is happening.
Yeah.
And so she was just always out with different men. And, we were in convenience, so she dumped us off at my grandma. And so right around the time that this was happening, she ends up getting this man who's got money, he's got a nice house. Like, she gets a job. She gets out of our hometown and moves to higher Ridge. And the state's like, okay, we just have him back. So my mom takes me back. But the other 3 stay there. But the state thinks that she has assault back. She's still paying us on taxes, getting child support.
Your mom?
My mom.
How weird.
I know. All the things.
How strange.
Yeah. And just I'm there. And so I'm like excited to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
But little did I know, I was going into a much worse one. So her husband was pedophile, also sexually abusive. The stuff that I went through there was just way worse than. And this will work your rate up. How old were you then? It's like 9. Okay. Oh no, that was around 9. And it went on until I was 12-ish, 13. It actually, in the way that it only ended because my mom and him got in some kind of like fight. And I remember they never got physical. And this was actually my only the only time I ever witnessed physical violence in my life was just situation. But I heard them fighting in the red room. And I ran in there. I grabbed some knives and I told him, get away from my mom.
Yeah.
And threw them at him. Then, it just came to my mom's aid.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I know, the next day, she picks me up from school, has her little Pontiac Sunfire, it's a red, hat full to the brim of mostly her stuff, which this was pretty traumatic too, because she just picks me up from school one day, she left all my stuff, left all my stuff.
Sometimes adults can be very inconsiderate to children.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking, and mind you, there were things during these 5 years that were great. I got to start cheerleading, to competitive cheerleading.
I mean, this guy was loaded, right? So it was like the dichotomy of going from poverty and all these things to this, but having to deal with something so horrible at the same time.
Yep. Yeah. I made really good friendships and had a lot of things. And yeah, I got to discover my passion for cheerleading and was really, really good at it. And when it just picks me up and just ooh, in Farmington, we went in with grandma. And I'm like, oh, okay. Relieved to get away from him. But I didn't realize how much unresolved trauma I had from the way that went down until I started doing therapy recently. But so we moved to Farmington. I'm 13-ish. And I quickly start getting attention like I never had it before. Yeah, I don't know if it was because I'm mixed and in a predominantly white town. Like, I don't know what it was, but I was not equipped to deal with it. And so I became hypersexual, lost my virginity at 50, which was like, I'd barely started my period by the time. Or no, I lost it at 13.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I had barely started my period by the time I became sexually active. And I was sleeping around a lot. And what's another thing I didn't understand at the time. Now I understand it. Like, it was like I spent all this time being victimized by all these men. And now I realize I can do it on my terms. And
It took your control back, your power back.
yeah, so
And so not to reverse too far, but did your mom know about this while it was going on? Did you try to tell her and she was in denial too?
oh, that's a great question, Ashley. I don't know if she knew. I had reason to think that maybe she knew. I definitely never told her. I was mortified after the way things played out in the foster home
Okay.
for anyone to find out, like, the thought of that terrified me.
Yeah. And then to be accused of lying again or that.
Yeah, so I was a horrific victim.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to tell a soul.
I don't know how these monsters find these innocent children in this, like, the perfect storm situation. Okay, so you moved to the new school and you were kind of just felt free and probably safe, but also putting yourself in unsafe experiences. Yeah.
So by 15 years old, I ended up pregnant with this guy I had no real interest in. During the sprints, I was with him because he was with my friend, one of those situations. And so here I am pregnant and in full-blown denial. Somehow my aunt knew I was pregnant. It's always the aunt. Because one day I come home and she's like, there's a pregnancy consumed back with toilet and you're going to take it.
Oh. And I'm like, okay. How old was she or do you?
She is the youngest of all of my mom's siblings. Probably mid-30s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So younger. Close to you probably.
Yeah, we're all close.
Okay, so you took the test.
Yeah, I took the test. It was positive.
Mm-hmm.
And it still didn't register. That was correct. I remember getting in the shower and like washing my hair and looking at my belly and it's protruding a little bit. And mommy's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And mind you, I'm cheering. Yeah, I'm involved in cheer. And I'm in a name for myself by this point.
Were you a flyer or were you?
I was.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
I was a cheerleader too when I found out I was pregnant, but I was a backstop, so I was really scared because I was like,
Oh my gosh.
if this girl falls on me,
Tell me.
yeah.
So once we found out, I was really ashamed.
Yeah.
Like, teen pregnancy in my high school was not.
So it's a small school where everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And like very religious out there in Farmington, isn't it? Like I kind of noticed that when we went out there. I was like, and at the time, like I was not religious, didn't even follow Jesus. So I noticed everywhere, like every single yard had like a Jesus loves you, Jesus this. And I'm like, this is intense here.
But the thing is, what's the saying? They say even walk the walk and talk the talk. Like, they didn't.
Oh, I could already tell. Yeah, that it was something like that.
It was kind of like my old foster mom. We grew up in the church, and she helped, foster those seeds in me. But her heart posture is just not aligned,
Yeah.
not biblically aligned.
And it's like, I feel like this has come up on every single podcast that I've had, but it's like people who are just trying to look like what the good Christian is. And they will go to any length to look like it, but not actually try to be that. And that's so unfortunate.
It is.
Okay, so you're in denial, you're in the shower, you know that you're pregnant, but you're also still not.
Still in denial.
Yeah. So when did you finally come to terms with it, or how did you deal with it in the earlier days of it?
Well, I knew one thing was for sure. I was not going to go to school pregnant. I did not want anyone seeing me pregnant. And just felt like I didn't want to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing that I suffering the consequences. So I all off plus actions. So I told my mom, you went to registration for, I think it was my junior year. And I made her sign papers saying that she was homeschooling me.
Oh, wow.
And I told all my friends, aside from things that were posed to me, that I had to quit cheer because I was getting surgery.
Dang! No, actually, I kind of went that way too. So I'm not judging. I did the same thing. So I just forgot until a moment. Yeah, no, I totally resonate with that because you're kind of like maybe prideful a little bit. Like you don't want to admit that you maybe messed something up.
Oh, and be vulnerable of that. Yes, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
But I would say that the truth quickly spread like wildfire.
Oh yeah.
Which it wasn't all bad. All of my friends, they supported me. They threw me a really nice baby shower. They even came to the hospital when she was born. It didn't really kick in like the whole time I was pregnant. It wasn't until I had her at the hospital that I was like, and it was such a traumatic birthing experience.
Oh man.
One more time.
What was it? If you don't mind me asking.
So I am tiny.
Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah.
At 16 years old, I have little baby hips.
Right.
And when I started prenatal care, the doctor in my town was like an older man had been practicing for years, and he straight out the gate was like, "We're gonna do a cesarean on you," and I'm like, "No, you're not." Right? I was so stubborn and headstrong. I'm like, I want to have this baby naturally. I don't want to do the epidural.
Yeah, good for you.
All the fight for it. Yeah. And I was like, even if I have to do prenatal yoga, whenever I have to do, Pilates, like I was doing all these things, going to the Civic Center, doing these hip opening exercises, trying to prep my body for the experience. And
Did you want to do natural too?
yeah, I was dead set on trying it after delivery. By the 8th month, my doctor still wasn't budging on giving me that opportunity. So I switched to doctors, to a woman who was younger, newer, and was in a practice that had just opened up down there. And she was like, "Oh yeah, girl, like you can do this, you can do this. I've seen growth more than you have babies." Or told me everything.
More progressive and open.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, heck yeah, let's do this. And I went. So my due date was December 6th. I went Ireland 9th. I think I went for an appointment on my due date. Just, your Ayler checkup. I was 3% years dilated, almost completely phased. But I also had protein in my urine. And what that means, it's like an indicator of preeclampsia.
Yeah.
And so I was preeclamptic. And from what I gather now, normally a doctor would be like, okay, we can take you for right now.
Or a C-section, right? Or at least induced labor.
Yeah, usually immediately. But she was like, I'm not on call for 3 days, so I'll see you in 3 days.
Your life is at risk, right? And the baby.
Yeah. So 3 days later, on the 9th, I go in. They induce my labor. I'm in labor for 24 hours.
Oh my God.
I held out on the epidural until I was 7 centimeters, and then finally I was just like, "Give it to me."
Take it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's when they really like, because I made it to 7 and then 8 with Archer. And that's when they start hounding you. Like, this is your last shot. And then, like, a contraction comes and you're like, and it gets worse. And I'm like, okay, fine.
yeah,
So I totally,
so painful.
yes.
And so I get the epidural, and I'm good for like a couple hours, and then out of nowhere, I start getting my contractions, and they're gradually getting more intense. And I'm telling the doctors I'm hearing my contractions. Well, that was crazy. And eventually, they're like full blown back. Again, we still don't know why, but the anesthesiologist wanted to redo the epidural, and I already had this fear of the epidural. Yeah, I like the side effects.
It is actually dangerous, too, which is crazy. No one talks about that.
No, they don't. But I had enough research to where I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And I just had it in my mind that if like something went awry the first time, how do I know something else will happen?
Yeah.
Like something worse,
And the medical care is not great out in Farmington, is what I'm assuming, because none of this should have happened. Not even down to the protein in the urine and then them just paying it off. That's like wild. Okay, so what happens after that? Do you get the second one or no?
No. I was adamant I'm not getting it. So
Okay.
I'm like 22, 23 hours in at this point. My doctor has me on all fours doing all these crazy maneuvers to get our baby down. Yeah. I'm 9.5 centimeters dilated, completely effaced.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why can't they just push?
Yeah.
She's like, you just can't. You have to be 10.
Wait to 10, yeah.
I wouldn't get to a 10. So eventually my blood pressure is like off the chart. Even my daughter's, the vitals are going haywire. And they're like, we're going to have to put you to sleep. and do it an emergency cesarean. So that's what they did. And so I go to sleep and I wake up and mom's holding my daughter. Everyone else had already had my daughter. I'm like one of the last ones.
That's so hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking. And I saw, not to trauma dump on you, but I can resonate because my mom showed me a picture of Jaden before I actually saw him. And I was just like, that's still like scarred in my mind. I'm like, why did you do that? But she had a C-section too. So maybe she just didn't think of it. Maybe she was like, this will be better because like I didn't get to see who knows what she would think.
Right.
So that's so.
I feel like maybe the older generation doesn't have that mentality. Like I researched a lot. Yeah. And there was a certain way I wanted everything to go. I wanted to have that initial like.
You wanted something special out of. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure it still was. So it's not to take away from anything, but I bet you resonate with like, that is so heartbreaking because you're like, I just went through all this and now every single person. And apparently like the first 10 minutes of a baby being born is vital.
Yes.
For connection.
Yep.
Okay. So tell me more. Tell me more.
So, I just remember them handing me my daughter and being like, "Do I breastfeed?" And everything blurry. And I'm like, "No, are you crazy?" I was in so much pain.
Yeah.
And passed back out. The rest is kind of a blur. But fast forward, I have my now 14-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
She's amazing. We've grown up together.
Yeah.
And I love her.
Yeah. She's almost your age now.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure she probably has learned a lot from you and you're very open with her, I'm sure, about everything.
So open. I think she's sick of me.
That's how I am with Jaden too. So not to get too far off track, but sometimes he'll ask me, like kids, they'll talk. And so he'll ask me some question. It's like some really foul word or something. I'll just straight up tell him what it is. Mom, you didn't have to tell me that. You asked is better than not knowing, I guess.
Yeah.
Like if you heard the word, I would better than you Googling it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
From someone else and like having those conversations with other people.
Because sometimes kids are wrong too, like with what they think something is. Okay, so you have 3 others.
3 others.
So tell me about what happened in between and how you came to actually know Jesus instead of just having these people around you. Obviously, you had that encounter with the Holy Spirit at 5. But where was Jesus throughout this?
Yeah. So after I had my daughter, I had this plan to get my GED by the time my graduating class graduated and start college with them in the little community college down there. And I did that. And then my boyfriend at the time got our first apartment. And mind you, I'm not with her father.
Okay.
Like, we had a conversation after I thought I was pregnant. And I told him, like, I'm pregnant, it's yours. I don't want to be with you, but I would love to co-parent with you.
Yeah.
And got with someone else shortly after that. It's this man, this love interest that I'd had for a while. We finally made it happen. Yet I had to be like, why'd you finally, like, want this? But I'm
The timing.
Yeah. But he was incredible. He stepped into that role.
Wow.
And did an amazing job. Helped me get my first apartment. He was a couple years older than me. And me being a minor, there were things I couldn't do. Get my own bank account, nothing. My own nothing. Yeah. So thank God for him. But we got our own apartment. I bought my first car. Started college. Went for a year. And then year 2, I met the sprengel. I was in college. Her name was Nicole. We got really, really close. And she was cheering at the college and convinced me to cheer with her the next year. So we tried out together. We made it. We did summer camp. But then in October of that year, she got in a car wreck and passed away.
Oh.
Yeah. It was really, really hard. That was a really hard one.
Yeah.
So we're almost 18 at the time. Maybe we are 18. We're about 18. And within like the same week of her passing away, Ivy, the father of my second son, and he is an addict. Addiction was completely foreign to me. There was really I were an addict with that too. Yeah, that I wasn't exposed to. Yeah. And he's an addict, and his drug of choice is nothing but me. And one of my really good friends actually introduced us. And so eventually, like, I tried it with him a couple times, and I actually hated it. It's a very long time of me being with him and being around it before it actually, like, took a hold of me.
Oh, dang.
But eventually it did.
Yeah.
So this goes on for about a year. I'm intimately using with him. He moves in my apartment. I drop out of school because there's no way I'm going back. I lost my best friend of it. In my mind, I had nothing left there for me.
Yeah.
And after about a year, I get tired of the lifestyle. And I'm like, my foot down, like, I'm done. We're done. This is done.
Yeah.
I was jobless. So I'd bought through so much. My car had been stolen. You were at the bottoms. I was at rock bottom.
Yeah.
And so he and I separated, and I find out I'm pregnant. Like, great. And it was actually only because we got sober for a couple weeks right before we broke up, because I was at my wit's end, that I got pregnant.
Yeah.
So I had been pretty, like, unhealthy in that year and just infertile. And so I found out I'm pregnant. He's still using. Accuses me of sneaking around and, be someone I wasn't. I was completely loyal to him, even amidst everything that was going on.
Yeah. Well, there's probably psychotics, like having psychotic episodes.
Oh,
So,
oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Says that he's not his. And that really put me in a bad place mentally. And I went from actually, like, wanting to get better, thinking, like, convinced I wasn't an addict, because everywhere we go, I'd see people that were way worse off than I was. And so it wasn't until I was pregnant and found myself addicted to stop using that I recognized there was a problem. Yeah. And for the first, like, 8 months probably of my pregnancy, I was convinced I was going to get an abortion. Saying, mind you, like, a little over an hour away from the nearest abortion clinic. So when you're an active addiction like that, there are a lot of unique pieces that you have to align to make something like that happen.
Yeah.
Bonds is
Not just hop in the car and go.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I now know it's by the grace of God that it didn't play out that way. But it wasn't until my 8th month of pregnancy that I got prenatal care. And I saw my son for the first time at my first appointment, because I'm 8 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy cow.
And you were on the boat. Where was your mom?
She was dating.
She was doing her thing again.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the midst of me getting addicted and losing everything, I ended up back at my grandma's house. Grandma's house still is not great. She's blind. There's people in and out all the time. There was, like, Rosie, they were just always dirty. Very similar to the living conditions of the house that got us taken away.
Yeah.
And that's another thing to it. Like, with my daughter, I told my mom, because we were still living there at that time at first. And I was like, if you don't help us get out of here, like, I will put her up for adoption. I can't get an abortion because I can't consent to that.
Yeah.
And also I would never at that point in my life. But I will put her up for adoption. I wanted to give her better than what I had.
Yeah.
So I'm back living at my grandma's house at this time.
With your son.
Yes.
And your daughter.
Yeah.
Well, you're pregnant with your son.
Part of myself, okay, I daughter, yeah.
Yeah.
My mom's out running around doing her day.
Yeah.
And actually, while I was pregnant, I got into a domestic dispute with the aunt I mentioned earlier, who, which this plays into something we're going to talk about later.
Sure.
About criminal convictions and just that whole element of, all of the terrible things that happen in addiction. We did circle back to that. But this is the time that happens. I'm just going to plug that in right now. So I'm pregnant with my son. I get into this domestic dispute with my aunt. It results in me running away with my daughter frantically. And at this point, I'm clean, because it's after I'd seen my son, and I was like, I'm having this baby. I'm going to get together. I grab my daughter. I run off in tears. And I'm like, I'm going to the cops, because she assaulted me physically.
Yeah.
And I don't go to the cops. Instead, I find out where my mom's living because my mom had been living. She just got a house with a man and wouldn't tell me where she lived. Yeah. Like, I kind of understand because I was active. Oh, sure. But also, like, I was clean at that point, and I'm crazy. And your grandson. Yeah, I have my daughter. Exactly. Yeah. And I go over to her house, and I'm just hysterical. And Jaden's crying because she witnessed the whole thing. And my mom's like, you're not going back or you can stay here. So I start living there, give birth to my son. He's a teeny tiny baby. When I find out that my aunt had been like hoarding my mail that was going there, she gives it to my mom. So I open it all. It's like a series of envelopes. It's like one of them is saying that I was accused of domestic assault. Anne falsified a police report against me. The state picked up the charges. I was summoned to appear in court. I missed my court date. There was an active warrant for my arrest. All of these lawyers are sending me email trying to represent me in court.
Dang. So she did some vindictive stuff. Terrible. Yeah.
So now I had an active warrant out for my arrest. I had a baby, and it was
And a daughter. And how old was she too?
She was, like, yeah, like 3 or 4. So eventually, I relapse. I go back to my old ways, and I get picked up on that warrant, go to jail, and when I go to court, they're like, you just plead guilty. You can go on the baby ham search. I did not realize, for anyone watching this, do not plead guilty to a domestic assault charge, no matter what, like, rank it is, misdemeanor or not. It holds a lot of weight when you're trying to really do anything, get a job,
Oh, yeah.
get an apartment.
That makes sense. People look at it like it's your audience.
Yeah, exactly.
And you were just trying to get it over with, I'm sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to get out. I had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted to get out of jail.
Yeah.
And so I get out of jail, and I continue battling with addiction. This is about, my son was born in 2015. Another year, I'm like pretty bad off. By 2016, I have another rung of sobriety where I'm taking it seriously and wanting to get clean. I checked into an inpatient treatment down in my hometown, which was terrible. It was a joke. And eventually I started dating this guy who, like, kind of dabbled, but he was established. He was well off and had his own place. He had, a car. He actually got me a car, and he was just a good guy. Yeah, I feel like he just kind of plucked me out of the situation I was in. Yeah. Just put me in, a safe space.
Yeah.
And I got a job. Still struggled a little bit, but I was better than I had been in a long time. And in 2017, he and I had a falling out. We were very just dysfunctional and toxic, and we were together, and he had been trying to get me pregnant, actually. And we were gonna have a baby together. I felt like he would at least be their father. And I just wanted that experience, pretty easy with a man that I felt that actually did. Yeah, exactly. And I end up going through a relapse and going out and sitting with someone else, and then I'm pregnant again.
Oh, God is funny like that, isn't he?
He's something else.
I don't look like.
It's something else. Yeah. So now I'm pregnant, and I'm like, you can get. He's like, hey, and I'm like, but I don't make it yours.
Oh, dang. And so you just had a sense and a knowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew it wasn't next.
Even though it really, I feel that as a mom, you just kind of know those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I always knew. So he was not cool with that, I'm sorry.
Well, he wanted a so bad that he did not believe me when I said, but it's not yours.
Oh.
Okay. So look, we kind of stayed together. I had the baby. He came to the hospital. So did the actual dad and his family. When the baby came out, it was so much like the other guy.
Oh, God. There's no denying it anymore.
He's like, oh, yeah, I better go. I mean, gosh, I told you.
Okay, I didn't try to lie to you, right?
Exactly.
And so he was, okay.
At the time, and I realized God was better than me.
Yeah.
Because it played out the way it was supposed to. Yeah. At the time, I would have probably rather had been his,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't. So I have my son, and I'm clean the whole pregnancy with him, by the way. Way different than the very first one, or even the second one. And I decided I'm going to breastfeed him for a year. So I did that, and I'm still clean during that time. But then we do like an end of the season breastfeeding photo shoot. And I stopped breastfeeding. I weaned him. And then I started dating this guy who lives like in a neighboring town that's in recovery, or he's in recovery from heroin and opiates. And I'm like, I hate those so bad right now.
This is a safe space. Yeah, but yeah, I'm not worried about.
I always say not to get into a relationship with someone in recovery, especially early, but we don't like the same things.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this will be fine. So we start dating, and things are good for a couple months. We get our own place together, and eventually we start using the other kid's drug of choice. And so relapse again. This is in 2019, from about January to October, actually. I battled with this addiction. And in July, I actually had my first and only overdose. So I'm doing heroin, I really hacking about it, mixing it with Xanax, and I overdosed at work, actually.
Wow. And where were you working at that time?
At a place called StarTech. They don't exist anymore.
Was it a car insurance thing?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
So they did different things. They were contracted with Sprint at one point in time. We did customer service, like billing, technical.
so you were just on the phone, probably.
At this point, it was with I worked for Charter. I was a billing specialist for Charter. They were contracted with Spectrum, and I was a chat support. Like,
Oh, we were typing.
mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, so you could probably come in any kind of way as long as you can slightly communicate.
I was very good at my job, and yeah, I made it really easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I held that down for a while, even while I was struggling. But then, oh my, I overdosed at work. Okay, that's scary. A little context. Forgot to mention, I didn't mention my dad or, any backstory. Well, yeah, none. When I was, he actually worked there with me at this time. So let me back up for a second and give you a little background on my dad.
Yeah.
So my dad and my mom never really got along. My dad didn't believe I was his. My mom had to get a DNA test to prove it. My mom is black. My dad's white in a prejudiced town.
Yeah.
And my dad's family was very prejudiced.
So they weren't supportive.
So, but once my mom got the DNA test and proved that I was theirs, everything changed. They wanted me around. They wanted to be involved. But my mom still wasn't there.
Yeah.
So she kind of kept me away from the outside my family as much as she could. And then when I was 5 or 6, right around the time I went to foster care, my dad got arrested for child pornography.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And went to federal prison and was in prison he got out in 2018, I believe it was. So for a long time.
Yeah.
And the case against him was pretty condemning.
Yeah.
To this day, we don't really have a relationship. I think he picks up the phone and calls me, I'll answer. That's rare.
Yeah.
But I can't be around him because I know what you did.
Yeah, you can't trust them around your children. You can't be trusted around yourself.
And he doesn't take accountability. If he took accountability and was like, I did this, I messed up. I'm sick, I need help.
He doesn't even do that.
No. In his mind, he explains it away. I had pictures of girls who said they were older than they were. But that's not.
I think it's such a, and I don't want to discount it by any means whatsoever, but it's like almost like it's so deep in their psyche that they can't even admit it when they're with someone who has nothing to do with that. Yeah. And I don't even know that that's true, but it feels that way.
Yeah.
Because of the denial that they go through. Mm-hmm. Like, it's the only way I could logically explain it.
Yeah.
Is that they don't even, something dark going on.
Yeah.
Something evil.
It can be that way with anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can go there with anything. It's just really unfortunate when that's the thing.
Oh, that's the worst thing on this earth, I think. Okay, so, but you were working with him. So yeah, probably, like, I would think if it was my case, I would be doing that to try to like numb the fact that I'm working alongside my father who did all this. And then I went through all this as a kid, and like the cycles that repeat are just wild.
Yeah. There was a lot of unresolved trauma for sure. And that's what it all boils down to. My dad had gotten out of prison, got a hold of me and was like, I need a job. And I'm like, well, I don't know what the like stipulations are here, but I had a really good job. Maybe you can try to get on here. And he did.
Yeah.
And the reason why that's relevant is because he's one of the people who found me when I overdosed. There was also this guy there that saved my life, literally. He had a thing for me. We were just friends. We spent a lot of time together, but he somehow knew my every move that morning.
Well,
And so he knew what I had used. I mixed two things that should never be mixed together, and that's how I ended up overdosing. And it's July, so it's hot.
yeah.
I do the stuff. I go out to my car. I get in it. I go to start it. Never started it, and just pass out. Next thing I know, I wake up in an ambulance, and it was the guy and my dad who found me and called the cops. And I wake up and I'm hyperventilating, having a panic attack because I realize that I'm at work.
Yeah.
Like everyone in the world is gonna know. I worry at people I knew, like just shame, embarrassment. Oh, I forgot to mention something very important to my story is in 2016, I actually lost custody of my oldest two kids. So right around the time I got with the guy who helped me get clean for that short period of time, my grandma had lost her house. So the house we moved to when I was younger was the same house that she had for like 15 years or something, a very long time. And then out of nowhere, she has like this psychotic break. She has very severe mental issues and loses that home. And that's actually what led to me living, kind of just couch surfing and using.
Yeah.
And my kids ended up going to live with my mom, who had also lost her house at some point and was living in a camper with her boyfriend. So my oldest two kids were staying there. And she randomly decides that the camper is not big enough for them. It's not a suitable environment for them. And has one of my sisters who are still very much involved with my old foster family because she continued raising the oldest or the younger three.
Yeah.
And so my sister picks them up and takes them over there. So now, as all of this other stuff is happening, my oldest two children are with my old foster mom, and she's raising them. And she actually went through the court and decided she was going to do it legit because she didn't want me to still be able to do all the things my mom was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a blessing to you as well.
Yeah, exactly. And go to court, she got temporary guardianship, and I was fine with that because I was no place to fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my kids are living there. So that was another element of us.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering what the kids were doing, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
So they were kind of in a safe space. I'm hoping that whatever happened with the son of that person, that wasn't able to happen because the son probably was gone, right?
I mean, he was gone, but something similar did happen to my daughter, which I'll get to.
Cycles. Hold on one second. I'm gonna do a few things before we. Will you just talk really quick?
Yeah. The cycles are pretty awful. Generational trauma, generational curses.
Yeah, it's wild, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking to your therapist about?
Yes, because something else just came to light. The aunt that I told you about.
Yeah.
Which we don't have to put this part of the mess. We can review.
I'll edit this whole thing. So, and honestly, with the kids, we'll let them tell their story later. That's kind of how I'm, but just felt like this was blowing into our faces and it was triggering me.
Oh.
Like my eye was watering and I'm like, I gotta find a breaking point.
Yeah.
But it's up to you. If we want to cut it, we want to keep it. So there was another cycle? Because
there's two other cycles. And it took me to a really dark place. This is recently. That aunt that I mentioned, it's coming up.
Yeah.
Ended up shortly after our altercation getting with a man who was an addict. Started doing the same things. And ended up having 2 more kids. She had a kid that was only a few years younger than me, and then had 2 more kids who are now only like 8 and 9. So giant age gap. It's already out of nowhere. Yeah, with these 2 guys. One of them's a really bad drug addict, and so she's been struggling with addiction since about 2016 till this day. And I just got a call from my sister that DFS got involved with her, took the kids away, and she was dirty, won't admit that she's using, is giving all these excuses why she's dirty. And also, the daughter made accusations against my aunt that she was sexually abusing her.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But
So I went to a really dark place. I'm working through it in therapy.
yeah,
Just realizing that like that level of depravity exists on both sides of my family, and it's generational. Like you can trace it back. It's
just trauma after trauma, and instead of people healing it, I can hear from your story, you're healing it. You're turning it around for your family. And now that's like the trajectory that really does. There's something in the Bible that talks about once a family member decides to come to Jesus, like the whole line heals. And you're right, like people who can't take accountability for it, or it's always like one excuse or another, you can tell that they're not growing from it, they're not healing from it, and that's how it repeats.
yeah, exactly. The psychology of it is, and I've studied a lot just trying to understand it, is the traumatized often becomes the traumatizer.
Yeah.
The abused becomes the abuser.
Yeah.
And I'm just grateful that God blessed me with the wherewithal to be able to recognize that and do better.
So where were we? Okay, you overdosed and you woke up in the ambulance. That's where we were before we went back a little bit.
Yeah. So I wake up in the ambulance and like just overwhelmed with emotion, and there is my shame, and start hyperventilating. I think I had my first panic attack. Yeah. They take me to the ER. That's the first time I'd ever seen my mom and dad, Lissy.
Like what? Really? Yeah.
And that was in July. Shortly after that, in October, I get a knock on the door, and it's DFS. Someone called and told them that I was using, and that I did have my other son there.
The youngest.
Yeah. Youngest son. And I admitted it. Like, yeah, I'm using. I don't really know what to do about it. I've tried rehab.
Yeah.
And so that day, I went to the drug test. Was dirty. They had to replace my son with one of my aunts. No.
Okay.
Not the one.
Yeah, the one that's really flaying out some stuff.
It's a different one. And I checked myself into rehab. I want to say like a day or two later. I had state insurance. So state insurance.
You get like 30 days or something.
And had really bad rehabs. Yeah, they funded rehabs are terrible. Yeah. I had already done that once. But there was this girl that was really close with the girl that I had been running around with at this time. And she reached out to me and she was like, I heard you're not doing well. Would you consider going to rehab? And I'm like, no, I've already done that. Like, I have really bad insurance. And she's like, but I work at this really good treatment center that's relatively new, that, and I can get you a scholarship so you can come for free. And I start looking into it, and it was an incredible rehab. Like, I was like, absolutely, yes, sign you up. Like, I could come tonight. And she made that happen for me. I went to rehab. This was October 25th, 2019.
Wow.
I checked in, and I've been clean ever since. Yep. So I check in. I do the 30 days. In order to get my son back, had to walk the written service agreement, which the minimum amount of time you can do that in for the situation that I was there for is a year. So I walk it perfectly in a year. I'm taking hair follicles all the time, urine tests, and it just comply with everything to get my son back. I actually meet my husband there in the rehab center. It's called Summer Lake Recovery Center. And we get out, we start dating. We get my son home. Eventually, petition the court to get my other 2 kids home, get married, decide to have our daughter, and buy a house. And it's pretty much from,
You guys are doing incredible too.
yeah, from the time I got clean, God just started restoration.
Yeah, and he will. So was God a central theme of the rehab or no?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so that was very independent for you.
Yeah, exactly. They're very, like in A, they talk about higher powers a lot.
Yeah. But you get to choose. You're not forced.
Yeah.
Where he's out, but yeah.
And there's a big emphasis on that. Like, they're like, your higher power can be a doorknob. You know, they don't want to offend anyone.
Yeah.
And I always knew who my higher power was. I never doubted that.
Yeah.
Like, God was always in me. The Holy Spirit was always in me. I knew he never left me. I wouldn't still be here today.
So was that a divine encounter when you were 5, or was there anyone in your life that was connected to Jesus and the Holy Spirit?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. Yeah, my grandma, actually,
The blind grandma.
yes, so used to, my earliest recollection of Jesus comes from memories that I associate with her. She used to always just talk to Jesus. So he was there, like just laugh and talk to him. And so I always just had this association that Jesus was here.
Yeah.
I didn't know who Jesus was. I had never gone to church at this point. I didn't start going to church until foster care.
It was just her relationship.
It was just her relationship. So then I learned in Sunday school who Jesus was.
Yeah.
And I was able to put to place a person.
Finally figure out who he kind of
Exactly.
Yeah. So was she always blind her whole life, or was it later life thing?
She went blind in her late 20s. And it was, so my mom said she was 6 years old. My mom's 50 now when she went blind. It was from undiagnosed high blood pressure. She would just drive me one way and just boom,
Yeah.
sight gone.
Yeah.
And has been blind ever since.
Because it's like the retinal, just like
Yeah, it destroys something. Yeah, it can't be.
or never really. That's sick. She was driving. So is she safe? Did she pull over safely, or
Yeah, she was safe.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't remember the details of the story, but I do know she said she was driving. She went blind. I don't remember how she got to safety. And
Right. No,
happened after.
I was just curious. Like, that was wild.
Yeah.
That's really wild. Dang. So, how did you get into cosmetology? When did that happen and start?
In 2021,
Okay.
our house, we moved up here. I always kind of had a knack for it.
Yeah.
I was the only one bold enough to cut people's hair. And they needed it. You color their hair. I was piercing people. I would do belly buttons and tongues in my high school. I wear that. And a lot of the people that I've pierced still have their piercings very unorthodox. But I just always had a knack for
Yeah.
a skill, body modification.
Yeah.
And so when we moved up here, down in Farmington, there really was no good no cosmetology schools at all, really. You had either go to Cape or drive up here. And so it just really was never an option. There was a very short period of time when I was in very early addiction, still trying to figure out what's next. That there was a beauty school down there that I enrolled in for a couple weeks. It just didn't really go anywhere. So I always had an interest in it and a knack for it. And in 2021, when we moved up here, I was all kinds of schools up here, yeah. So I decided to revisit the idea of being able to do that. And it was just another one of those things where God just kind of laid out the stepping stones and I just walked on through. Ended up, it was actually in the heat of COVID. It was a really weird onboarding process, but
Sure.
we did it. And I started at Paul Mitchell.
Yeah. School. Good school.
Yeah.
The best one out here.
Hear that? It's cool. Yeah. And graduated, and somehow in the midst of all that, decided I was going to get an LLC. I don't even know, there was very little thoughts to that process.
Yeah.
I just told my husband I wanted to do it, and I didn't know.
You knew you were a business owner, from the jump.
Daily. Yeah. And I never really at that time had the desire to run a full salon with employees, That's changed. Now one day I hope I can do that.
Cool.
But at the time I just wanted something that was mine that would allow me to do this in a way that I chose to do it if all else failed. And I woke up one morning and my husband had my LLC like screenshot of the
name and everything.
certificate on my phone as my wallpaper. He went, "You got my LLC." Somehow. And I'm like, oh, we have to have an LLC. So then I tried a couple different salons and just there were just things that didn't align with me.
I remember when we met, it was because I was a hair model for you. Yeah, and then you left there because they didn't have products that you believed in, right? Is that what it was?
One thing.
Yeah.
And then also I was their first employee.
Oh, wow. So they were still early then.
Very early.
Yeah.
And I quit my part-time job to give that my all.
Yeah.
Took a huge pay cut, had to put my daughter in childcare for the first time. And after 4 months of just struggling because they were not paying me that much,
Yeah.
my husband and I were like, you're basically working to put her in childcare. What you have now an LLC, you have the full setup in the salon. You're already still putting in all the work to get all your own clients.
Yeah.
Only now you're making way less money.
Yeah. And you has a skill that deserves so much more than that. So
Thank you.
yeah.
At the time, I felt like I didn't. And that's what ended up driving me to want to work in a salon, was to get that experience and get those heads and
Yeah.
acquire that skill set.
Yeah. So, okay. So you got that. And now you've moved on to helping women with hair loss, like postpartum hair loss or just hair loss in general. And then, okay. So like, give me a little rundown on that. What is that? Like, whatever you can give. I don't want you to like give your trade secrets or anything like that, but.
It started with extensions. I always knew I wanted to do extensions. From like middle school to college and into adulthood, I experimented with extensions. I was one of those people that was always changing my hair.
Yes.
Because I was always changing my hair, I like struggled to grow my hair. So I would gather all the funds for the clip-in extensions that Sally sold, and just every time I'd change my hair, I'd buy new extensions, cut or color them to blend, cut them to blend, and just was always changing my look and really loved extensions.
Yeah.
And the transformation and just that experience of transforming. It's meaningful. It is. So it really is, especially for people who do struggle to grow their own hair or whatever reason. And so I knew when I went to cosmetology school that I was going to make extensions the focal point of my career. And I graduated in December. By July, I was certified in one of the top methods that's on the market, and this will be extensions. I paid for it myself.
They're beautiful extensions, so they're so good.
Thank you. I paid for it myself, got the certification, and eventually, by the grace of God, built up a pretty abundant clientele.
Good.
With
Because they need it every, 6 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's always growing.
Exactly.
That's cool.
And with that, I quickly identified a need for... I felt like I wanted to be able to do more for people. Because obviously, someone is wearing extensions. If they could, they'd be rocking their own hair. Just long, beautiful, full. Yeah. It's hair supplementation. Yeah. And they're doing it because they can't get their own hair where they want it to be for whatever reason.
There's so many environmental factors in our country, too, that are affecting that right now.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, the odds are stacked against us.
it is. It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
And as someone can struggle with that, and it got worse after my last daughter. After I had her, I lost a bunch of hair. I struggled with hair loss myself.
Yeah.
And that really kind of ignited a fire in me to want to be able to do more for not only myself, but for them.
Yeah.
And so I started looking into hair loss certifications and studying up on that.
That is so important. So I want to pull out my Bible. I did not tab this, but I want to bring it because it's on my heart. I'm going to search it really quick. But it's where I think it's Paul talks about a woman's hair being her glory. And I think that's such like when I hear your story, it's that's what you're really wanting to bring to women. And I feel that I have, since I started reading the New Testament, I realized how important our hair health really is. And I know that's some people might hear that and think, what are you talking about? But when I read this, hold on, 1 Corinthians 11:15. Where are you? It just says, and isn't long hair a woman's pride and joy? Yeah, and so it's like when we have all these like things that are stacked against us, clearly from the enemy, like the things in our food and even our water, we can't just drink it right out of the tap, like, or really even you shouldn't really even use it on your hair, like the tap water. So it's like it's trying to attack what a woman's joy is.
That feels intentional, doesn't it?
Oh, it is. Like it is, and it's so sad.
100%.
And so it's like seeing you doing what you can to combat that in the way that you're given in your industry is really cool. You don't see anybody talking about like hair loss specialty.
And the thing is, like, when I got into this, I didn't even realize that it was biblical. You know, God works. That's how.
He will move in your life, and then you find out later that you're going the right direction.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's so cool. So, I'm trying to think of like what else. Oh, I wanted to talk about you with the plastic surgery, if you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Because it's something that's been on my heart, and it's kind of like, I know that with your story, you had some like reservations about it, but also it's another mark of transformation and change and becoming new. So, and becoming a new identity in Christ, I think.
Yeah.
So let me check the cameras really quick, just to make sure they're still going, and then we'll go for it.
I like almost did not come here.
I'm gonna be honest, I've been being attacked by the enemy the past few days, and it's just been really bizarre. But I'm really grateful that you did come.
Me too. I almost did. Oh my gosh.
Were they scary, or can we talk about them on the recording, or should I cut it?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
So it's actually where I got, like, I asked God to prepare me for this because I realized this is not about me. This is not my truth. Yeah, this is his story. Yes. That I'm revealing through me. Yeah. You know, it's being revealed through me.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to show up and speak in a way that glorified him because that's really all that matters. And I'm going to be honest, and we'll get to this later when we talk about the plastic surgery thing.
Yeah.
I have not been really proud of the way that I've been showing up, but that I also realized, courtesy of this dream, that that's a lie of the enemies that I've been buying into.
Yes.
I keep telling myself that in a perfect world, I'll be doing all these things. I'll wake up before the sun, you know, Proverbs 31 woman. Yeah. Wake up before the sun, clean my house, get everything ready for everyone, read my Bible, work out. Like, there's all these things that I want to be able to do. And I was able to do them during my first year of recovery before I had all my children back home. Yeah. But that's just not the season of life that I'm in.
Yeah.
So I'm like chasing this dragon that I honestly don't think I'm ever going to be able to tap into. That version of myself, not as long as I'm a mom.
And yeah, I mean, we're not Jesus,
right?
You know, so like he did it, and look at his like earthly life, what they did to him, you know. So don't feel, I mean, there is a lot of attack for being that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's constantly going to show up.
Yeah.
And we're not Jesus.
Right. We're never going to be Jesus. And that's just us buying into the enemy's lie that we're not good enough and that we're not doing enough.
Yeah.
Like, who are we trying to be good enough for? God? Because we'll never be good enough for God.
Yeah.
That's
Amen.
the whole point of the gospel.
Yep.
And it's only in the Holy Spirit that we have the desire to try. And it's only in Jesus that we find grace.
And it's comparison to like online. So I watch, and God bless her, I love this girl on YouTube, but her name's Ashley Hetherington. And the way she presents herself, and maybe she is this way, and she doesn't have any kids, so it's different too. Mm-hmm. But like, it's just like the perfect Proverbs 31 woman. She gets up, she reads her Bible, she makes her cute little lattes with the toast, and like, and you know, I'll go through phases where I will be on it like that.
Yeah.
And then one little thing will happen, and then I'm like, spiral down, and then like,
yep,
suddenly I'm sleeping in again. Yeah, I'm like, yeah.
And then you have that condemnation, and it's like, that's a lie. That's a use.
It is. And also, I feel like sometimes I wish there was more in the Bible about things like cycle syncing and things like that. Because obviously, as a woman's natural, our body rhythm.
Yes, and it's a big deal. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
And it just isn't, I don't know. I've prayed out about that. And I feel like I'm starting to get some clarity because the Lord's like, there are women in the Bible that you can read on. And so I've been doing that, which has really helped. But yeah, and I can imagine talking about like the plastic surgery is scary because I want to get plastic surgery. Like fleshly me wants to get plastic surgery. And I'm not going to say I feel like a condemnation against it, but for me, it's like I do feel a condemnation against going into debt further, especially as I've been trying to pay off debt. So right now in a season of my life, it would make 0 sense, you know? So it's just kind of like an interesting and controversial conversation that is, when we talk about it, we're opening ourselves up to being allowed to be attacked by other Christians, by being, you know, all of the things. So I can imagine why that part of the conversation would be scary. So my good news is we left it till the end. So the people who aren't meant to hear it won't. And then, you know what I mean? Like that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So tell me your rundown on it. Like what is your perspective on it?
My perspective after having gone through it is I feel like we, especially as women, all too often look to physical solutions to address spiritual problems. And I had myself convinced, because I have had 4 children, okay? My goal is just to get my body somewhat back to what it was before having kids.
Yeah.
And I just saw somebody shooting go. I'm so sorry. Someone just got in their car for their
You watched them with
I was like,
where are they going?
Sorry, my brain went. Okay, where was I?
So you had said you were trying to get back to something. Basically, I completely understand what you're saying with that. Like you feel, I mean, you had your first daughter so young that in a way, maybe it's like you feel like you never really got to have this female adult body that you see on Instagram.
That's so
No, it's so true though, right? Because I feel the same way. This person, leave.
I had it, and this was gone. Go away. Come on, brain. It was right there. Oh, okay. So I had it in my mind that if I got this surgery, it would motivate me. That's a whole other thing for another day, but motivation and discipline. I've been I've been using those words interchangeably, and they're two completely different.
Yeah.
They're completely different. So I bought into this idea that if I got this plastic surgery and just got my body to look the way that I wanted it to look, it would make me more inclined to show up and work out. Because again, I keep comparing my life now to my first year in recovery. And it was a great year.
Yeah.
But I didn't have my kids, you know?
Yeah. And kids are their own life forms. Like they need so much.
They do.
No one talks about that.
No. It's a lot.
It is.
It's a lot, but I prayed for that. And God gave me that. And that's a sacrifice that I have to make for this time. But 9 months ago, I was like, this is the secret sauce. This is the solution. Because it was really discouraging. Like even in that first year of recovery, I was working out consistently and still wasn't really able to see the fruits of my labor physically just because of my body.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, let me just fix this physical thing. And then I'll start showing up in the gym, and then I'll be, a better version of me. I'll be healthier mentally, physically, and I'll get in my Bible more, and I'll be better for my kids. And
oh, that's the trap, isn't it? So the trap for me was like, well, just lose the 30 pounds you want to lose and then start the podcast. And I'm like, dude, if I keep waiting around, I'm never going to start this podcast. So I finally had to just say, like, it's done.
Yeah.
Okay, so keep going.
Yeah. So I came to a point where I almost pulled out. I paid for everything. We were, for the first time, in a really good place financially. We had no debt besides, our home loan or car loan.
Yeah, normal.
Yes. and our credit was amazing. And I'm like, well, now is a good time if I'm going to do that. You know, I'd been thinking about it. I just never thought I'd have the means.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, God gives us the means. So I'm like, yeah, let's do this. But then I came to a point after talking to one of my sisters in Christ where I was kind of feeling convicted about it. And I hadn't felt any conviction over it before because I never looked at it as, and I'm not judging anyone for anyone who wants to do these things, but in my brain, and also, just gonna say it, like my boobs, for example. I didn't want to get my boobs done. That was never the desire. I just wanted to restore my core. I had diastasis recti. I wanted my core back together.
Right.
But now I understand that that was just the enemy, you know, dressing it up.
Wanted to give you another saying you needed to be more perfect.
Yeah. And I wasn't like, I don't want a bigger butt. I don't want bigger boobs. Now, is that to say that if I felt like my boobs needed to be fixed or if I felt like I needed a bigger butt, like,
Yeah.
no, yeah, yes, it's all that.
Yeah.
That was just a lie that I'm telling myself. But I don't want this. I just want that. So it's okay. I was just rationalizing at that point.
Yeah.
I had no conviction over it whatsoever. I didn't feel like it was vanity. But then I had a conversation with a friend and she's like, that's vanity. And so I'm like, but wait, this friend's an African-American woman. I'm like, yeah, you get your hair done. Like you get it, like you get your hair done, you get your nails done sometimes. Like you care about how you dress. That's also vanity. Right. So I'm like,
It's the intention behind it.
yeah. Yeah. I'm like, where do we draw the line at what's okay, what isn't?
It's so difficult.
It really is. It really is. And what I learned is God put a verse on my heart that hits Luke 16:10. And it says, he who is faithful with little will be faithful in much. And he who is not faithful in little will not be faithful in much.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely true. If I wasn't disciplined enough to show up for my family, show up for myself in the gym, show up for God in the mornings, you have 4.
Yeah.
Why would I think that was going to change after I got a plastic surgery procedure done? I will say till this day, I still struggle with consistency. I just learned that I didn't recognize now that it's just manipulation of the enemy.
And he can make you think so many different things and it's so no one talks about how convincing he actually is. You know what I mean? And sometimes you don't feel the conviction until it's over and you've done it and then you're like, dang.
Yeah, like I bought into that.
Yeah, like mine is so we've been on this debt-free journey for quite a few years. And I went out last year and bought a $30,000 car on credit. And every month I feel the pain of having to pay a stupid amount of money towards it. And so like I feel it on like a different level, but still like the car was kind of a vanity thing. Like we had an older car, we're meeting with clients, we're trying to pitch them like commercials that are like $50,000 to $100,000. And it's like your mind thinks like, well, why would they ever buy this from me if I'm like presenting myself like this or doing
you want to be good enough. You're not good enough where you are, the way you are. Let me try to be better.
Yeah.
But it's like, who are we trying to do better for? Who are we trying to please?
Yep. And it was trying to please man. At least on my end, it was trying to please man. So yeah, so that's crazy. So where are you at? I mean, it's open. You've done it now. So do you feel happy about it?
There's this quote that I'm trying to find that take your time. Podcast today that was amazing. Where is it? There it is. Okay, it says, where our confidence comes from determines when it runs out. Which I thought was crazy and so relevant to my personal testimony. Yeah. I don't regret getting the procedure. And even if I were to get other procedures, I feel like I did make an idol out of vanity because I put that before God. I deemed that a prerequisite to be able to show up how I felt like I wanted to show up. And that is putting confidence in the flesh. And this fleshly body, it expires. It has an expiration.
You're the you one, so
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's gonna surpass. anything we have here.
Yep.
So there's hope for us. And I think that maybe it's one of those cases where like what the enemy wanted for evil, God's doing for good. Because you're on here saying something that most people don't want to talk about. They don't even want to bring it up.
Yeah.
Because it's so scary to bring up. And I know there's only one other person I've heard. Have you heard of the Lecrae podcast? It's called Off the Deep End or something.
They're like that, right? My kids love him.
They do love him. They do. So he has a really good podcast you would love. He goes into some deep like stuff no one wants to talk about. And this pastor's wife ended up getting a BBL. And she gets on the plane to go get this BBL in California. And like she's like, as soon as she gets on there, the Lord convicts her. As they've already paid for it. They paid for it in cash. Like it's done. And they wouldn't get the money back if she didn't do it, kind of thing. Yeah, and she already paid for the flights. Obviously, she's on the plane, and she's like, I'm just going to do it, Lord. Like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
I would be scared because those things are dangerous.
Yeah, that's exactly my. I had a nightmare of my own death, like the night before the procedure, or like maybe it was 2 days, and it brought me to my knees on the operating table. It brought me to my knees because I'm like,
I'm so glad you're still here. That was not.
I know. I'm like, God, as this is not right, I will stop right now. Like we paid for some of it in cash. We financed some of it. I didn't know how the logistics of that would work out. I didn't know if I would be able to get my money back. I didn't care. I'm like, none of this is work, a spiritual or physical death.
No.
Like, yeah, this isn't what you want for me.
Yeah.
But it's like in 2 days, so you're gonna have to give me a
Show me.
you're gonna have to give me a sign.
Yeah.
Whew.
So yeah, so she got it done, and then after like 6 months, it just went away.
Are you serious?
Yeah, like it, sometimes it can dissolve.
Yeah.
Whatever. So that was kind of like her story was like, and I think getting up here and even talking about it, maybe to some women, it'll be a good thing. Like I really need to examine my motives.
Yeah,
with this.
exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
I think you had a good intention. You thought it was going to get you going and get your routine on point, and that's just not how it works.
No, it really.
And I will say, from a human standpoint, it is so hard and discouraging whenever you have like, I don't know if you had loose skin or if it was just the is it diastasis recti?
Diastasis recti, yeah.
So either way, when you're working out, those are things that don't really get better.
You don't.
And I think God's healing my mindset because I follow this one woman who has really, really extreme loose skin. And usually when I, like, if it was 5 years ago and I saw something like that, I'd cringe. I'd be like, oh, like, ooh. I saw it the other day and I was like, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool. It was weird because I've never been like that before. I'm like, maybe he's healing my mind.
Love that.
Like, what the heck?
I'm telling you, social media is poison.
It is.
It can be poison.
You got to be really careful who you follow.
Yeah.
Some of these girls are out here getting BBLs and then pretending like they're doing glute workouts. I went down that rabbit hole, made myself sick. Like I couldn't even bend forward because of how tight this muscle was here.
Mm-hmm.
And just like always in pain, could barely sit down, was barely growing any glutes. And then somebody had like exposed all of it, like proved that these girls were doing this with plastic surgeons who were like showing them how to fake a BBL, or like not fake a BBL, but like make them believe that their followers thought they grew this.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay. So I do not feel called to get that surgery. Like I feel like that's the most dangerous one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not worth risking my life.
No. But I wonder, it's easy to say that, but I'm in a lot of plastic surgery groups. I've seen people's before and afters.
Yeah.
And it's I can't say that if I didn't look like their before, that wouldn't be something that was on my
Your
radar.
dysmorphia concern.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where I think like just the ability to humble yourself and practice empathy comes into play, because who are we to judge anyone for doing anything?
Truth. Yep. For sure. We can't. No. Well, I mean, unless you have anything to add, I think that this was a really great episode. I think it's going to be so good for so many people on so many different levels. And I'm so glad that the enemy didn't let you, oh my gosh, sneak out of it.
Thanks for hanging in there with me through all my anxiety.
You're totally fine. I woke up this morning, last night. So I told you I went on Good Omen podcast, which is a pretty big following podcast.
Yeah.
And I was on my way there. I couldn't believe it, but I'm like reflecting, and I was more excited for ours.
Aww.
And I woke up this morning with excitement. So I'm like, I know it's going to be okay. Because I was a little nervous too, because I'm like, Lord, I don't know how we're going to have this conversation. Like, this is a very, very controversial, and I feel like both of us are still like we're still trying to unfold what it even means, you know? So yeah, thank you. And thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe and share with a friend, and we'll catch you on the next one. Hey there, friends. This is Sierra coming at you guys almost 2 months after filming this and realizing that I did not let Hannah do a shout out of where you guys can reach her and reach out to her. So what I have here for you is an Instagram. Living an Answered Prayer is her Instagram handle. And if you guys want to join her podcast, it's called For the Good Podcast with Hannah Sprengel, and that's on YouTube and Spotify. And if you guys love her so much and you want her to do your hair and you guys can just have great conversations like this, be sure to check her out on Instagram at Hannah Does Hair SDL. I think I just saw something where she's even doing mobile hair, so she can come to you guys if you're in the St. Louis area. So thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to this if you're watching on YouTube, and follow me if you're watching on Spotify. And if you guys learned anything from this podcast or it helped you in any way, please be sure to share it on your Instagram. You can tag me at Mrs. Sierra Sweet, or you could also tag at The Plentiful Harvest on Instagram. Thanks, guys. Bye.